You have not had a complete outcry, uniform, from members of the Democratic Party responding to what President Trump did, effectively blaming black, brown people, women, people with disabilities for that air crash. I mean, let's be honest, that's what diversity is. And that is what the president said, that black, brown people, women and people with disabilities caused this crash. I mean, where is the outcry from, a coordinated outcry from Democrats?
They needed a coordinated outcry because the uncoordinated outcry, with their mental disabilities and their gender dysphoria and all, they've got a lot of issues to work their way through every day. That was the radical left-wing extremist European communist Caddy K on MSDNC this morning. If you say maybe DEI is not the best way to hire air traffic controllers, then you're a racist and the little English person. Caddy K, remember the English inflicted slavery upon what is now the United States of America. We had to kick them out. You British people you don't have a leg to stand on, which means you go to the front of the line when it comes to jobs at the FAA if you don't have a leg to stand on. See, that's because they want people with missing limbs and mental disabilities. So they're encouraging Democrats. You bet your bottom dollar. Well. Hey, wait a minute. We're back. And holding on the line, thankfully, since Michael Piercy mismanaged the clock again. It was all me, actually. It was all my fault. But let's go back to Bob. Let's go back to Bob calling from Moscow, Russia, which is not in the United States at all. Hey, Bob. Sorry.
Yeah. One quick thing. On the DEI issue, you need to hire qualified people for certain qualified positions. Ask Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, the next time they need major surgery, if they're willing to take a surgeon that's coming from Venezuela. That's a DEI hire to be their surgeon.
Who's a tattooed gang member, a member of Tren de Aragua, should operate on him with switchblades.
As long as they have a medical degree. Look at all these countries. You can get a medical degree, but they're not honored in the United States. According to the Democrats, anyone with a medical degree should be allowed to be hired, but they're not qualified. And getting back to the issue with the accident, this is all about policy and procedures. Since 2020 and COVID, near misses have been increasing on a yearly basis.
Yep.
The policies are, if there's short people, you need to do something to slow down the planes coming in. Who cares about money? Who cares about whatever? It's all about saving people's life and safety. With this, if they would have shut down the airport or just put it on a weather delay where they limited it to one runway and slowed everything down, then they'd have no problem. They'd have no problem with the supervisor letting the one employee go for a break.
Well, you mentioned near misses, and we've got a lot of eyebrow-raising questions, and we've learned a number of things. Not because of the Washington Post, which isn't. In fact, Bob, I'm going to digress for a moment here. But the Washington Post still has not mentioned the transgender Democrat from Massachusetts that came to Washington to murder the Speaker of the House, the Secretary of the Treasury, and the Secretary of Defense. And has been arrested. Molotov cocktails, a big jagged knife, and the Washington Post hasn't mentioned it because they're not a newspaper. And you said if there's short people in the control tower, I assume that's a reference to dwarfism, since they're emphasizing hiring dwarves for the FAA. But the Democrat Party shouldn't be allowed to be in charge of anything. I mean, if you've been paying attention, and it sounds like you have, Bob, you've been paying attention for years, the Democrat Party shouldn't be allowed to run anything. They don't want to run nothing but their mouths, as it's a line that Marion Barry used describing Jesse Jackson one time. Jesse Jackson doesn't want to run anything but his mouth, And the Democrats don't want to run anything but their mouths. Now, do you have an aviation background, Bob?
No, I'm a DEI hire when it comes to this conversation.
Well, that's good enough for me.
I just have common sense.
That's a problem.
And being a pharmacist, being a retired pharmacist, if we're short-staffed, we don't try to keep the pace at the normal pace. We slow down because safety comes.
Because safety comes and... Oh, he's gone, really. He dropped out. The NSA finally latched onto our phone call here. I was going to ask him why he was in Moscow and stuff. Bob, thank you for the call. Have a safe Moscow day. Go wave to St. Basil's for me in Red Square there. It's a pretty scene. It's too bad, that there are communists everywhere and Putin and all that stuff. But Bob from Moscow, that's a lot of fun. I've got to say, we're a global station. We're definitely... Yeah, thanks to the patriarchy, we can do this sort of thing. Bob can call in from Moscow, talk on the radio show. Everybody can hear. The Democrats, they're opposed to technology, modernity, electricity. Read the story briefly the other day about how new reports find that the Chinese communists are so tapped into our power grid that they could shut down the power across the United States tomorrow. Just shut it off in New York, shut it off on the East Coast, New York and Washington. Just shut it down, and it could be months before we get the electricity back on because, Biden and Democrats and things. But with that said, thank you, Bob. Fun call. Let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Pete calling from Stafford, Virginia. Pedro, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris. It's been a while since we've talked.
Welcome back.
I just, I wanted to call. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, hey, real quick, my best girl and I are both going to CPAC and the Free Speech Forum this year. Are you going to be at either one of those?
I'm going to be at the Free Speech Forum, absolutely, for sure, at the Birchmere. You bet your bottom dollar. And CPAC, it's fun you should ask that, because yesterday I worked with Mercedes Schlapp of the CPAC Schlapps at Newsmax pretty much every day, and we were talking about it last night and talking about what I should be doing at CPAC. We're talking about even doing our Newsmax show from the main stage at CPAC. So that's something that's being negotiated. So I expect I will be at CPAC, and I don't know if I'm going to be doing my radio show from there, but maybe the TV show, and certainly the Free Speech Forum at the Birchmere. Tickets on sale now. They're going fast.
Right, so hopefully we'll see. Hopefully we'll see you at one of those at least. So we'll come look you up. So,
excellent.
Oh, great. Just to talk about, because of the whole situation with Kash Patel being grilled by Democrats who have no idea what they're talking about, they talk about, well, number one thing that he wants to do is to basically clean out FBI headquarters. Now, making it into a museum, that's just hyperbole, and the Democrats don't understand hyperbole or humor or anything like that. But he said he wants to, send agents out to the field. Now, this was done years ago by Louis Freeh when he was the director, and it worked for a while, but it always tends to backfill. It's like, digging a hole in the sand. It keeps filling back in. But I'll tell you, this is what headquarters is like. Okay, you have the FBI director.
Now, we should say that you are a retired FBI agent.
Yes.
Because we haven't mentioned that yet. And Pete and I know each other from sailing the seven seas. We're old pals. So I know a good deal about Pete's background, his great book on terrorism and so on. But I apologize. Go ahead.
No worries. So get back. You have a director, which of course Kash Patel will be the director, and he's going to have to be at FBI headquarters. But you have a deputy director and several executive assistant directors. There are like a dozen executive assistant directors below them, deputy assistant directors, section chiefs, assistant section chiefs, unit chiefs, sometimes assistant unit chiefs, and then the GS-14 headquarters supervisors. So that's 9 to 10 layers of bureaucracy at FBI headquarters, along with there's like 11,000 people at FBI headquarters. And that's, there's like 13,000, and about half of them are special agents of different, levels. And then you have analysts and support employees. That's 1,100 people just at FBI headquarters. Now there's about 35,000 FBI employees, maybe 38,000 worldwide, and about 13,000 or so of those are special agents spread across the world. So probably need more special agents and analysts out in the field and fewer at FBI headquarters.
Right.
But the Democrats keep talking about Kash Patel's qualifications. Well, did they ever ask what Christopher Wray's qualifications were, or Comey's qualifications were? I mean, J. Edgar Hoover was a librarian. He was succeeded by Clarence Kelly, who actually had been a special agent in charge of the Kansas City office and was a police chief. So he had some qualifications. William Webster, after that, had just been a DOJ guy. He was a judge. William Sessions, after that, was a judge. Louis Freeh was a judge, although he'd been an agent for a little while. And then you had Mueller, who was terrible. We've talked about that before. He did more damage to the FBI internally than anybody. He was just a DOJ. So we always had a string of DOJ guys that were just, high-level DOJ guys at Justice. And then they go out to private practice like Ray did and then comes back on. So, Kash Patel has been an investigator. He's been a prosecutor. He's been a defense attorney. And he was the number two, or he was the chief of staff for DOD.
That's right.
I'm trying to figure out exactly what qualifications he's lacking.
Right, honestly. Yeah, well, that's just one of their talking points is, and you're right, and they never hold themselves to the same standard that they try to hold everyone else to because they're hypocrites and clowns, and as you know, were it not for double standards, liberals would have no standards at all. But when you look at Kash Patel, did you watch the confirmation hearing yesterday?
Yes, I did.
And your takeaway from the Kash Patel confirmation, I love one of my favorite parts. I think we talked about it a little bit on the radio yesterday. Sheldon Whitehouse, the white racist Democrat senator from Rhode Island who belongs to the whites-only beach club that doesn't allow minorities in. And I was thinking Kash Patel should have requested from the chair that he only take questions from Democrats who would allow him to join their private clubs.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, he's a person of, Patel's a person of color. I mean, why would they be they only, if it's a Republican person of color, they vilify that person.
That's right.
Right. So
Uncle Tom.
They criticize Republicans. Yeah, they criticize Republicans for not having enough minorities, but look at how they treat them when they do. Look at how they treat, Senator Scott and people like that.
That's
they call them names. They so anyway, that's the hypocrisy.
Dr. Ben Carson, who they never called doctor, even though he's a world-renowned pediatric neurosurgeon, but they call Jill Biden a doctor every time her name comes up because double standards again. And these people there's a lot of mental illness out there, and its name is the Democrat Party.
Yeah, it is. Well, the one thing I would like to say just is to give a shout out to the people who are still on board with the FBI is things will get better, I hope. I talk to a lot of retired agents. I talk to a lot of people who are still on board. I think they're hopeful that everybody's, a little bit concerned. They don't want to say anything, if you know what I mean. But
right.
I think things can be turned around. I'm hopeful. I was lucky. I think I was in the bureau through the 70s through about 2014. I thought that was kind of the FBI's golden era. We did some good things. So I'm just hoping it can be. I think we can return back to that.
Saved. Can I use your last name? Can I use your last name here?
Yeah.
Okay. Sure. We gotta wrap it up here. But listen, I'm hopeful too, and I'm hopeful that Kash Patel will be able to save the FBI from itself. But this is now former FBI agent Peter Ashew, who wrote a great book called Chasing Shadows. Right, Chasing Shadows, and a lot of good stuff. The terrorist, gangsters, bankers, and the Al Capone method. Name of the book, good stuff. And the FBI in a post 9/11 world, great stuff from Peter Ashew, one of the good guys from the FBI, and from our sea cruises too. What? No sea cruise this year? You mentioned CPAC and the free speech forum, but not Iceland.
Yeah, we're still trying to figure that one out, Chris.
Okay, I gotcha. I gotcha. Listen, hey, God bless you. Thank you for the call. I appreciate it. And you and your best girl, you be well. And God save us all because we need a little saving right now. Pete, thanks very much.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for the call. You know that the all-new third-generation Eden Pure Thunderstorm air purifier has finally arrived. And it builds on the incredible success of the previous generations, which earned thousands of five-star reviews on Al Gore's amazing internet, quickly became a very bestseller. The new Eden Pure Thunderstorm uses two technologies that studies have shown help to kill up to 99.9% of bacteria and viruses in the air. Also knocks down dust and pet stuff and smoke and a whole lot more from the air. Helps get rid of any odor. Odors, I'm telling you. Also, no filters to buy and replace on a schedule again and again. How annoying. The Thunderstorm will help get rid of any stinky smell, guaranteed. I mean, trash cans and litter boxes and cigarette smoke and the shoe room, your teenager's room. Right now, you can save $200 American dollars on an Eden Pure Thunderstorm 3-pack for whole home protection. You put one here and one there, one in the basement, one in the bedroom, any place you like to breathe clean, fresh air. All you have to do is go to EdenPureDeals.com and use the discount code CHRIS3, CHRIS and the number 3 to save $200 on 3 thunderstorms because you hang out with me. That's EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is CHRIS3. Yes, sir. Yeah, I tell you, some days I feel like I should just take calls for 3 hours. I think that'd be fun. There's always, we have such great. Even yesterday I was getting text messages and emails about great callers. We had a great Black Hawk Army pilot, retired call-in, Army Major, call in yesterday. Got texts and emails. We have, I don't want to say the greatest callers in the business, just better than everyone else's. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at WashingtonTimes.com/Chris. All right. And we should go back to the telephones again. I'm going to get... on our next block, a big block, going to get Tulsi Gabbard on Capitol Hill yesterday, who was just great. Former Democrat. Sounds like she's all better now. Let's go to Danny, calling from Washington, D.C. Danny, you're on the Chris Plante Show.
Hey, good morning, Chris. Well, let me get you off speaker. Two things. It shouldn't take a month for the FAA and other entities to find out how many people were in the control tower at the time. The control tower is two entities. You got ramp control, and then you've got tower control. Ramp control passes everybody off once they get to the runway, whether they're cleared for takeoff, and tower control lets them take off and lets them land. Now, it's very simple. I mean, it's a second-grade math equation. If Jill scans in at 6 and Mary scans in at 7, and then Jill scans out at 8:30 and Johnny doesn't scan in till 9, how many air traffic controllers were in the tower? That said there. Where I work during the day for my day job, I see incursions between landing aircraft and military aircraft daily. 3 times a day.
And that's not at Reagan Airport?
No. I work very close to Reagan Airport.
Well, hang on. You got to hang in for a minute, too. God, I keep doing this today, apparently. Let's go back to the telephones, Michael, and go to Danny, who's still calling from Washington, D.C. Daniel, thanks for hanging in there. You're on the Chris Plante Show.
And no worries. It was funny, growing up, when I heard the word Daniel, I figured I was in trouble. But
sure.
In any event,
of course.
Like I was saying before you had to go to break, I see 2 or 3 near misses a day where I work between military aircraft and inbound into Reagan. And Monday I saw one just a few days ago, 4 days ago. I was standing with one of my coworkers, and he looked up at me. He said, "Sooner or later, there's going to be an accident." And I said, "Yep, sooner or later there will be, because it happens daily." and some of them have had to get out of their landing approach and get back into the landing pattern. In other words, they aborted their landing because they didn't feel safe, more than likely.
Well, that's right. Yeah, go ahead.
Or there was something on the runway at Reagan, and it's usually on a river approach when they come from the north, landing into Reagan, crossing through D.C. into Reagan. It's usually the river approach where you see more of your landing abortions, and they get back into the holding pattern because either the tower is missing something or there's miscontrol. I worked at one of the local airports at the beginning of this millennium, and I had a tower radio because we were out on the airfield.
Uh-huh.
Anytime the tower talked to me, I had to repeat his instruction almost verbatim so that he knew I understood, because it's all being recorded.
Right.
Now, it's just a protocol, and this is this is pre 9/11. I could only imagine that it's gotten more stringent. However, I was talking to a few of some other compadres of mine, just to use a different word, that I told him, I said, look, bring a lawn chair to the area close to where I work and watch.
Yeah.
And it won't take long for you to see it.
Well,
And they're like, you've got to be kidding me. I said, no, I'm not kidding you.
No, and look, I've seen it too. I pay attention to the skies and spend a lot of time along the river, and I pay attention to these sorts of things. I'm always watching what's flying in the sky over Washington, D.C., and usually some pretty interesting stuff. But listen to this, Danny, because even CNN today, they're whitewashing it, of course, which is racist. But here's the headline. Pilots had reported near misses with helicopters at Reagan National Airport in the years before the deadly crash. And CNN has 5 people typing the same story. In the 3 years before the deadly collision between an Army helicopter and an American Airlines flight near Reagan National Airport, at least 2 other pilots reported near misses with helicopters while landing at the airport. A CNN review of federal incident reports found. Hey, look, they can do that. They can look at federal incident reports. That's almost like journalism. On 2 occasions, passenger planes had to take evasive action to avoid colliding with a helicopter when trying to land at the airport, according to reports filed by pilots. Now, again, the helicopters are all government helicopters around here, almost always military helicopters. You got the Park Police and the D.C. police, but really it's military helicopters overwhelmingly that are in the skies around Washington, D.C. Now, just a day before, in addition to those 2 occasions, so they said there were 2, and then they list more than 2 incidents because they don't know how to count to 2 at CNN anymore.
No, they don't.
Pretty amazing. And just a day before the fatal collision, another flight approaching Reagan was forced to abort its first landing and go around after a helicopter flew near its flight path, according to air traffic control audio. These previous scares are sure to gain some more attention after the disaster over the Potomac River on Wednesday night, which is presumed to have killed 64 aboard the airplane and 3 Army service members in a helicopter on a training flight. Now, as search and recovery operations continue in and around the Potomac River, authorities are trying to figure out exactly what went wrong in the air above the nation's capital. But again, they're saying, and they say there are 2, and then I think they cite 4 incidents where planes had to take evasive action and pull up because helicopters are in the way. And if this happened the day before the crash, you'd think maybe somebody somewhere at the FAA or in the control tower would have sounded the alarm, but you'd be wrong because obviously nobody did.
This is true, and I will tell you this. One of the near misses that I saw was so close that the inbound aircraft flying down the river, so they made their turn for their approach to Reagan over the Legion Bridge. So they're doing what they call the famed river approach. And they fly down, they wrap around Roslyn, come down over the monuments, and then they go swoop on in. One of those military aircraft came across the river from the Pentagon, and it was a helicopter quite similar to the one that flies the president, which would be Sikorsky Sea King.
Yeah,
it didn't have the presidential seal on the fuselage.
Uh-huh.
It was so close and under the inbound aircraft that you could physically see the aircraft rise up and then back down because of the updraft from the rotors.
Yeah.
If I had to estimate it, it was less than 100 feet. Was that reported? I bet it wasn't.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, you're not going to get in trouble. You've got to say something. And you're right that the night before, Tuesday night, an inbound aircraft coming up from the south had to abort its landing because it didn't feel safe because it was getting ready to have its path incurred by a helicopter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like, what are you people doing?
Yeah, and you're right. The H-3 Sea Kings, which are typically very, very old helicopters, and they typically are the presidential transport helicopters with the Marine Corps Squadron HMX-1, and they're really cool helicopters. And they're about to be replaced with a new helicopter, too, the VH-92, I believe it is, another Sikorsky aircraft. Cool one. Well, listen, Danny, thank you for calling in.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Yeah, and one other point.
Yeah.
They're doing the typical government two-step where they're trying to assign blame to somebody.
Yep.
But the only problem is when they find out who was actually at fault, there can't be anything done to them because there were no survivors in that crash.
Well,
either one.
Yeah, well, that's I got to tell you, there are going to be procedural issues that'll be addressed, and the flight path, I would think, of military helicopters along the Potomac are going to be altered, and we'll look at the staffing in the tower at Reagan. And honestly, I think if I'm running the Army helicopters out of Fort Belvoir, I would have had a discussion before right now about shifting the flight path just a little bit so it would be impossible for your helicopter to be in the flight path of landing airplanes, airliners at Reagan Airport. But that's me. I'm kind of old-fashioned when it comes to that stuff. Danny, thank you for the call. You keep your eyes on the world around us.
This reactive stance versus a proactive stance has to stop.
Yeah, it's typical government stuff. Wait till something real bad happens, and then Daniel. I know how that works. I've got a brother, Daniel, and when Mom yells your whole name, Christopher. That's very different than hey, Chris. That's a very different thing. Got that? Everybody knows that. Michael instead of Mike. You got a whole bunch of that in our household too. All right, let's get back to where we want to be, and because there's so much stuff going on. And listen, we've got the near misses at Reagan. We've got issues about understaffing in the control tower. The headline in the New York Post, air traffic controller was doing the job of two people during crash. How can that be? The air traffic controller was doing the job of two people during the crash, and it says because the tower being understaffed, FAA says. How could the FAA say that so quickly? Oh, well, because it's easy to say it that quickly. The air traffic controller on duty at the time of the deadly passenger plane Black Hawk helicopter crash, Washington, D.C., was doing the work of two people, the Federal Aviation Administration said. Staffing in the air traffic control tower at Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport was not normal at the time of day and volume of traffic, the FAA found in its preliminary report. The fascists at the New York Times report. That means, they're sleeping with some Biden people in there. So understaffing resulted in a controller pulling double duty, overseeing helicopters while also guiding arriving and departing planes on the busy airport's runways, the FAA report found. The airport's air traffic control facilities have been understaffed for years, with only 19 fully certified controllers on deck as of September 2023, according to the Congress's air traffic controller workforce plan report. That's right, the Congress has an air traffic controller's workforce plan report that came out in September of 2023. And according to the union, they need 30 people on this tower, and instead they have 19 people. Now, that's a reduction of more than one-third based on what the union is recommending, right? And a plan that air traffic control said was committed to maximum hiring for the next few years to recover from the substantial under-hiring due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Chinese Communist, Wuhan, China, and the lapse in funding in 2019. Yeah, sure, the 2019, because and here we are in 2025, our government. The Biden-era report also highlighted the agency's commitment to DEI policies. The FAA is fully committed to ensuring equal employment opportunities while maintaining the highest safety standards. Well, you can't have both. As outlined in the agency's Diversity and Inclusion Strategic Plan 2021 to 2025, the report said. Kind of amazing stuff. And this is where they say they want people with severe mental disabilities and dwarfism, because that's what they do. Also, did you see that they rejected, under the Biden administration, 1,000 would-be air traffic controllers that came in and passed the standardized tests and so on, because they were white, because the racists in the racist Democrat Party discriminate against white people when it comes to hiring for air traffic control, because they need dwarves with one leg and mental disabilities, which they're prioritizing. Isn't that amazing? President Trump was asked yesterday, but this is another story that came out today. And, you know, journalism is possible. It could be practiced. It just isn't very often. But the Democrats rejected, because of their DEI policies, 1,000 would-be air traffic controllers based on their race. And it's not because they were black or Asian or something. It's the good kind of racism, the Democrat Party racism. They were turned down. They were denied because they were white. And you can't have that. Now, President Trump was asked yesterday by a left-wing radical reporter if he's going to visit the crash scene, which presidents often do when there are airliners that have crashed. Now, you could actually have seen it off of the Truman balcony from the White House if they had been standing out there looking. And President Trump said, what, you want me to go swimming in the Potomac River?
Have you spoken to any of the families of the victims of the plane crash?
I don't want to comment on that.
Do you have a plan to go visit the site or meet with any of the
I have a plan
responders?
to visit, not the site, because you tell me, what's the site? The water?
Or to meet with the
Want me to go
first
swimming?
responders down there?
I don't have a plan to do that.
I don't have a plan to do that. He was wanting me to swim. And now he's being attacked for saying, you want me to swim, because he said, do you want me to swim? And are you going to visit the site? It is in the, the watery depths of the Potomac River, which aren't too deep. But still, I don't think the President of the United States should be in the water out there. And again, there is a lawsuit, and a lawsuit found that the FAA discriminated in hiring by rejecting more than 1,000 qualified air traffic controller applicants based entirely upon their race. And again, it's the Democrat Party, again, the party of the bullwhip and the plantation and the Confederate States of America, discriminating now. And they tell you that the good kind of discrimination is when you discriminate against white people, because they pretend in their demented little worlds that somehow compensates for historical grievances related to race, overwhelmingly perpetrated by the Democrat Party. Wow, wow, wow. Yeah, amazing stuff. Minority candidates were given an unfair advantage through buzzwords. They had a secret code of buzzwords and irrelevant questions, because they've got a course that you graduate from to become an air traffic controller. And if you were white, you could do great on the course and on the test, but then the Democrats will call you disqualified. They'll say that you're not qualified for the job. And the one thing that the more than 1,000 qualified air traffic control applicants, one thing they had in common was that they were white. You know, they discriminate against Asians and white people at Harvard and Ivy League schools. And the left is, they're racists. That's the crazy thing. Yeah, highly qualified, already graduated from a 200-hour training program, achieved high test scores on their standardized tests for air traffic controllers, and then they didn't get the jobs because they're white. Doesn't seem like the way you should be hiring and promoting people.
People with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they want them. They can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so.
Okay, I didn't get to Tulsi Gabbard, but I'm gonna right after the top of the thing. Scott Hunter, we got a bunch of transgender murderers and would-be political assassins, transgender. The news media is almost every one of them actively engaged in a cover-up. The transgender loon Democrat from Massachusetts that came to Washington to murder the Speaker of the House and 2 Trump cabinet secretaries hasn't been mentioned by the Washington Post. And a transgender death cult that murdered a border agent in Vermont and wanted for murdering several other people as well. They're transgender, they're death cultists, you know, Democrats. All right, let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Dave, calling from McLean, Virginia. Oh, Dave, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Hey, Chris. Thanks for taking my call. Biggest problem here is the fact that the helicopter was at the wrong altitude. And my question is, the procedures crossing that airspace, I flew helicopters for 8 years in the Navy, airplanes for 8 years, and 28 years with the American Airlines. They would have heard the transmission from the tower to 5432. You're cleared to sidestep and land on 330. That would immediately warn the pilots of the helicopter there's an aircraft going to meet you there left of them. And they had no reason to be encroaching on the western edge of the Potomac, going over that way, closer to the approach end of 330.
Right.
And it's a VFR situation there.
Right.
If they had been at 200 feet, it wouldn't have mattered. However, the fact that they were at 400 feet is the biggest problem. There's a training problem that in the brief, if you're going to brief going into that kind of airspace, you're going to brief all the possibilities that happen there. This isn't a DEI situation. Landing on 01 generally is not encroached by helicopters because most of them stay clear of 01, which is the active runway.
Yeah, the main runway at Reagan. And visual flight rules. The crew on the helicopter, 3-man crew. You're supposed to keep your eyes peeled, and you're right. Being on the west edge of the river is wrong.